Welcome to another episode of the A-Team at New Beginnings Farmstead. I'm Elisa, and we have Egidio, Ryan, Julie, and Jeff. And Egidio had the idea of discussing, wasn't my idea, of discussing the controversy of renewable energy. So take it away.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, we are all about energy, right? Like right now, the utility bill is pretty high. We use normal electric, but we have committed a piece of this property to a lease, a solar lease, where they've leased the property for 20 years, put in a 2 megawatt solar field. We don't get anything from those panels. We get a discount on the electricity as part of the community solar and stuff. But there is still issues with, we're not there yet, right? The end of the day, we're still not there. But, you know, I recently I used an all EV vehicle. And I think that in and of itself has caused me to look at what it's all about. So the vehicle is good up to a charge for about 240 miles, somewhere in there, maybe a little more.
That sounds right.
And so from going from here to work and back, it's fine. It works out great. You know, I charge maybe once a week, maybe once a week and a half. Beautiful vehicle, exceptional. I mean, everything beautiful inside, electronics, the whole thing. But if you had to travel, I think that's part of it. Still, that's not out there, right? The infrastructure still doesn't exist. Now, I don't know, I haven't taken it on the thruway or the highway yet, but if I was to go to Albany, does every rest stop have a charging station?
Every renovated restaurant.
Yeah.
Okay, so those Apple Greens, is that what they call them?
Yes.
Apple Greens?
Yeah.
And are they the high speed?
I believe so,
Okay.
yes.
But that's staying in New York State. Once
Right.
you go further south, you get less and less, right?
Yeah.
Jersey has them.
It depends on
That's
where you go.
still north. I mean, if you go in the south of this country, they're less and less. I know in Colorado, there's hardly ever any of them.
What's the controversy?
So part of the controversy is, I believe that if there truly was a push to use renewable energy and get away from fossil fuels, right, gas, oil, and so on, that there would be a mechanism in place from the government, high ups, whether it's federal, whatever, to push down incentives that would really cause people to say, let's go in that direction. And maybe I'm just not aware of them. That's what I was telling her.
Well,
maybe I'm not aware of the
no,
incentives that are out there.
So we really wanted to go off the grid,
Right.
personally,
Yep.
the two of us. And for us to do that at the time, which was already a couple of years ago, it would have been about $145,000 for the batteries, which are the big thing, right? Because we'd have
The power
the
walls,
process of
Tesla
putting
power walls.
putting the batteries in and all of the panels. And at our age, there's no incentive for us to do that, because
Right,
we would have, by the time we paid it off, we would gain nothing. We would
Well,
be paying. There's no
right.
incentive
So the
other
pay-
than to do the right thing. People are not motivated enough to do the right thing. There has to be a financial incentive, or people are
Well,
just
you
not going to
say
do
the
it.
right thing.
The right thing
I
for
don't-
the
I don't
environment,
know if
for
you
the
can
next
say that.
generation.
I don't know if you can say that.
Also, there are incentives, so we can all chime in.
Okay, perfect.
Right.
Perfect.
There are
That's what I'm looking
incentives.
for. Yeah.
To me, right?
yeah.
To me, the biggest thing is, I think people would go, right? But you have to make it seamless, right? You can't, like gas is easy, right? We're used to it. We do it. It's convenient. To your point, the government or whoever, business, needs to get serious and say convenience, not the right thing, forget about all the other stuff. They have to make it to where you can jump in your car and travel. The technology is there if they want to do it.
Okay.
It's there, right? We've solved bigger problems. Until that point, it's never going to change, because oil, there's too much money, there's too much everything in oil and all that other stuff. And not everybody's doing what we're doing, right? So the American people are not going to hurt themselves or put themselves out when everybody else is doing whatever they want, right? Or am I wrong?
No, there's a big part to that. The convenience, the doing what you know, what we've done for now 100 years, that plays a big part in it. But to Elisa's point as well, there has to be some cost benefit of it. When we looked at doing solar on my house, it was a new house. It was easy. The house was designed facing the right direction to be sure that we could put solar on the house. And then when I started getting quotes on doing it, my electric bill is less than what it would cost if I had solar panels on my house producing energy for myself to use.
Yeah, we found the same thing. That
It would cost me more money
Right.
to have electric. I'm not going to pay more
solar.
every month to have solar
yeah,
to
yeah.
do the quote unquote right thing, like you had mentioned.
And you're even young enough that you would benefit from it. For us to pay that
Maybe.
off at that point,
Because it
like,
would've been-
we're not living here anymore.
And the other part of it is that the technology is changing so rapidly. So I said, let's hold out. It's going to become more affordable. It's going to be more widely accepted. There are going to be more incentives and things for homeowners to be able to do this. And I really don't want to have these given on my house. You're not even going to see the panels.
Right.
But make it even easier. And the solar tiles for roofs, that it's literally your roof. The entire thing is solar
Right, and
panels.
you can't- I've
That's a
seen
cool
those.
idea.
Yep.
I like it, but again, the technology hasn't been refined quite enough yet to make it reliable, 100% reliable. And to your point as well about being completely off the grid, if I'm going to start getting all this energy, I'm going to store it myself and use it, because there's a cap on what Central Hudson will take back all of it. Mm-hmm. Anything that you want to give them, they're going to take, but they're going to cap how much they're going to give you for it. So it's not consistent with that either,
There's a cap on how much you can produce.
unless you're completely off the grid.
there is.
You can produce 110% of what you're generating on the property unless you're attributing it to a different account. You can't just sit there and profit and build a huge system and then profit from it.
Okay. Why is that?
Because there are limits statutorily and regulated through the Public Service Commission
Right.
on the production of energy. Also, there are incentives that you could have partaken in. There's
Yep.
something called PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy,
Okay.
which is available to commercial and residential in some areas, where the investments made in energy efficiency or renewables are not assessed to you, they're assessed to your home. So that means when you pay a certain amount, and then when you are move or you're gone or whatever, the cost stays with the home, and you're not paying them off in your period of time. They're added to your bills for your home, and then the next person continues to pay them, so that it's spread out over time and it's not just on you. So if you move, it doesn't go with you. It stays here.
Right, it's an asset that stays with the property.
But now that's going to affect your resale value too.
But that would be anyway.
Right.
If we were
Yeah.
to take,
I don't see that
if
as
we
a
were to
benefit.
we are committed, right? We looked into it, and so we agreed to let the company come in and lease our property, lease for 20 acres. They, it met all the standards, and they put in the field, right? It's back there, no problem. And then we looked at, I think it was at the time, Sun Commons, right? The recommendation was Sun Commons. And we asked the sales guy, listen, this is what we want to do. We want to be able to go off grid, right? Completely off grid. So he estimated for, I believe at the time it was Samsung, it could have been Tesla, power walls, the batteries. And he said, I said, listen, I want to be completely off grid. I don't want to rely on anything and have extra in case, right? Because in case it's a bad storm, a couple of days, whatever storage. So he came back, and I think the price was 140, 142, something like that. And at the end of the day, if we were to kind of go over the course of a period of time, the payment was 1.5 or 1.25 what our electrical payment was. And it would have required us by contract to do all the excavation and installation of the conduit work. Like, there was a tremendous amount of work that we would have had to have done that they were not including in this bid. So we looked at it, we looked at the numbers, we said it's just not worth it. And so if we had decided to go with that and then possibly looked at that PACE program, I still don't, we wouldn't take the panels with us.
Right. That's why we're not taking that.
It
So
would be
what's,
an incentive. When we sold it, we'd say, hey, you're off the grid, right? You don't have to pay. If they bought that property then, say we went ahead with this and we said, okay, now we're selling the property for $500,000. There it is. It includes the solar and your off-grid electric at that point. You no longer have an electric bill. When we move, we either have to install solar or have an electric bill. So I don't know how would that program work for us? I'm like, how would it be
Right. Again, I don't see the benefit of it. It doesn't change what we're paying.
It doesn't change what you're paying, but it would be spread out over a lot of years. And if you were to move,
Okay. Yeah.
then you wouldn't take that bill with you.
Right. So it would be in the
okay.
price
Right,
of
you
your
said-
house.
sold with
okay.
it.
All right. I see. Right. We wouldn't take it with us. Okay. I see what you
Also,
mean.
I mean,
it wouldn't be our loan anymore.
Something
Yeah,
else
yeah,
to
yeah.
consider is what your demand is. So another way to reduce that is to reduce the demand.
Yep, true. That's true. Yeah, and we say it all the time, right? You can make more money or spend less money, right? At the end of the day, you got to have those choices, and those are all considerations, right? Leaving the lights on, what type of lights, LEDs, all that
Right,
stuff.
and we've done all that.
And we've done, and we did the
So
numbers.
let me ask you a question. You said that there's a limit on what you could make. Don't you think that if the limit did not exist, that the costs would be less if there was more of it? I mean, it's costing,
One of the
supply and
reasons
demand.
One of the reasons for the limit is also the capacity of the transmission system.
Right.
So if you were to set up a 5 megawatt system here on your
Yep.
property,
Right.
which you can't,
Right.
the local distribution system would not be able to accept that.
Right.
And there would be no room basically on the wires.
Right, and that's it. That's what happened here. That's why when they came to us, they were one of the first, actually the first in the town of Marbletown, but they had to get permission from Central Hudson and verify, because we've had other people come to us and say, hey, I think I've got property, I'd like to do that too, only to find out that the choke point is the transmission lines, that where they live, Central Hudson can't receive the energy that way. So, but if we were to do it in-house, never mind like the large, I guess that's called small array solar back there, or large array, or what's the 2 megawatt considered?
That's like the threshold for before you get to commercial. So that would
Okay.
be like small scale.
Small scale. All right, that's why I thought it was small array. And so if we were to put the panels on the barn, that would have given us enough to do 5 days without a backup supply in case there's something catastrophic, and still maintain the usage, the level of usage that we normally have for day-to-day operations. The guy said 3 panels, no problem. 4 because we run events here. And I said, no, I don't want to take a chance that we're in the middle of maple season or whatever. Let's do all 5. And it created additional issues because you can't have so many panels next to each other without some sort of a system and a shutdown. So it kind of built up, and that's, I think, part of the reason the costs went up substantially too. But I know there's a number of people that have asked us, at least during events, that they don't want to put a standby generator in. One of the things that they offer now is, instead of like a propane or natural gas standby generator, that they're putting panels on the roof and a backup battery source, so that if the electric goes, they're still using, in this case, Central Hudson's our primary delivery system. But when that goes out, storm, whatever, that there's no generator. This is just solar, and they size it based upon what they anticipate to be, the length of the outage, a day, 2 days, or whatever it might be. So, and then additionally, people that prepare like that usually put in some sort of a standby generator, whether it's a little portable. But so I guess part of it is that when we talk about for power in a house or even vehicles, I mean, I don't disagree. I think one of the concerns is the convenience, right? Because now, even if I decide I'm going to go to Albany or further than that, right? So I have to make a trip that's 400 miles. And when I stop, I'm committed to, at a high-speed charger, 5 hours?
No.
4 hours?
A high speed charger?
Yeah.
No, 45 minutes or less.
45 minutes. Okay. So I've added 45 minutes to my trip at that point. Now, I know, cup of coffee, bathroom break, whatever, but that still is more than a 6-minute gas pump, right? Now, the benefits, right? Emissions. There's no emissions with these EVs. Currently on the vehicle, right? There's no emissions.
From the vehicle.
From the vehicle, there's no emissions. It is, I think, a better system. I mean, I got to tell you, mechanically, this vehicle is unbelievable. The torque, the drive, it's just, the concern obviously is always what I've heard is, disposal of the batteries, or if the technology goes bad, or those are concerns. But it could happen with a regular gasoline or diesel powered engine. Mm-hmm. Same thing. They have repair shops, right? So I'm just interested to see, because for a while, it was New York State was kind of pushing the envelope with it, saying I think that 50% of the energy by 2030 had to be
right?
renewable. Right? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
And I don't know where we are in the scheme of things, and that's what generated a couple of solar companies to reach out for us. Say, listen, we see the land, we interested, and at the time a couple of them went up. Those small solar arrays went up. I just don't know why and if there is, even at the time we got a quote from Sun Commons that he didn't make us aware of that. The PACE program. Or maybe it didn't exist at the time. I don't know if that's the case or not, but
It's community by community, so your community would have to adopt it.
Right.
If they did.
So,
but also it's not common for an owner to go off the grid. So 98% of the folks who have solar in our community, if not 100%, are not off the grid.
Okay.
We're all on the grid.
Yeah.
Which means that we're still getting our power delivered, or some delivery. We still have to pay a delivery fee. But it also means that when the power goes out, so for my home, I have a 6 kilowatt system on my home. I power my 2 cars and my home with my house.
Yep.
When the power goes out in our neighborhood, my power also goes out.
Okay.
It automatically shuts off, even though my house is fully sustained by solar. During an outage, because I'm connected to the grid, and everyone else in the city who is connected to the grid, which is everyone, their power goes out. Such that when Central Hudson were to come in and fix the system in our neighborhood, if they were to get that all up and running, and my house was energized, that energy would zap into the system and would shock.
Well, it's the same thing with backup generators. There's transfer switches
I was gonna say,
that isolate you from the grid when that happens.
So when electric goes out, right now you have a solar panel system with a battery system.
I do not have a battery system.
Okay, so your solar does what? Just
powers my home.
Okay, but there's
and
no
my cars.
storage. There's no storage.
No storage, and that's what I'm saying. About 95 or 100% of the folks in Kingston
So that's the difference
don't have
between
battery
going off
storage.
the grid.
That's the difference.
Yes.
Going off the grid and not is the storage.
is the storage.
Okay.
I mean, you could say that my cars are partially storage, but
Right,
I don't
right,
have
right.
a two-way vehicle that can
Yeah.
do that. But
Interesting, because when we looked in it, we told him we want to be off the grid. Like we don't want to rely on any utility. Again, we'd stay connected in case something fall.
Right.
That
I
kind of
actually
thing, but-
didn't even think of okay, we'll do this just without the batteries. That never even crossed my mind.
Right, but then when the power goes out, your power's
Right.
out.
Right.
Just like everybody else.
Yeah, but you could have the generator for that.
yes,
here.
you can have a generator.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. So if the push, and again, this is where my questions come in. If the government pushed it, don't you think they would say, we're going to, and I'm just throwing it out there, we're going to give you the panels, you pay for the labor. We're going to pay for the labor, you buy the panels. We want to move in this direction so much that this is what we're going to do. We're going to give you a break on the taxes for the next 20 years while you're paying off the panel. There's got to be a mechanism in place to promote it, because I think there's I think the use of fossil fuels, and you look at the emissions and all. I'm not trying to get into that discussion. What I'm saying is, at some point, if the think tanks in the government say, we need to move in this direction, we have a finite supply of fossil fuel, and we got to find an alternative, and renewable energy in the form of solar or wind or whatever is a solution for us, and a potential solution for us.
Right. But no one can afford it.
Well, and we need to make this happen. How do we get the Tinties to put solar shingles on their roof?
That's part of the problem, right? In order, because of who we are, what we do, our country, however you want to say it, it can't be the government that does it. The government can facilitate, the government can move along, but it's got to be in private industry that does it, because that's how everything gets done, right? The government's behind it. Don't get me wrong. The government's got to invest in it. The government's got to do it. But until somebody can make a profit from it, it's not going to go. I know everybody's the government's going to do it, but what happens? We pay for it. Everybody pays for it, right?
That's
so
true.
in order for you have to have somebody else's cash to start it, and then just like oil and gas and everything else, once the government's a backseat to it, that's when it will become
Yeah, but it was
profitable
the
and move
government
on.
who said by 2030 this is what it has to be. So
And now, but again, now you have a deadline.
Julie is dying to say
I know
something.
she is. You have a deadline without a process. Right?
If people aren't willing to divest from fossil fuels and the investment continues to be in fossil fuels, there's only so much money that exists. And unless everyone wants their taxes to be skyrocketing, money from the government has to come from somewhere.
And that's what I'm saying. Private industry.
Right.
Private industry has to be able to make a profit from it, whether it's putting nuclear, wind, whatever they happens, it's got to be a private.
But there are also governmental mandates that are moving forward that will change the culture. So in New York State, there's a law that's passed that after 2035, there will no longer be gas vehicles sold in this state.
Good luck.
Do you really think it's going to happen?
It's not going to happen.
I'm not here to debate whether this is going to happen, and frankly, I didn't realize we were going to be having this type of
No, I
conversation.
didn't want it to be a debate.
No, it's not. No,
Well, it did start as the controversy. That's how
Yeah,
you-
you're
that's how you
right. Because it
placed
is
So-
controversial, right?
You
Like,
can't legislate compliance.
And now, for full disclosure, we have an EV car, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
We
Yeah,
use
yeah,
it,
yeah.
and I think it's great.
Yeah.
You know, what
I would
mean?
love to have an
It,
EV
it
car.
really is. I mean, Julie, you guys convinced us to get it. Let's be honest.
Yep.
It's great for us. We love it. We're trying to do our part. My truck doesn't help any, but we're trying to do our part.
Right.
I love it. It's great. Margaret thinks it's the best, right?
Yeah.
She charges
Yeah, she
like
loves
you
it. Yeah.
once a week, once every 7 days, 8 days, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's great. It's got to go to the next step.
But can it stay there? This is what I wanted to say the whole time is why can't it just stay there? Everybody that wants to do their part can do their part. You do your part. You have an EV in your multiple EVs in your fleet. I will have EVs in my fleet. You have an EV at home. You have 2 EVs. Everybody's trying to do their part. Little solar here, a little there. All those the sum of the parts are a whole. You are never going to divest entirely from fossil fuels
I don't think that's
there's
true. I think
too
we will.
much in our world that relies on fossil fuels, right down to everything that's on the table in front of us. Rely on fossil fuels.
That's not true.
I think we'll get
true.
there. I think
We'll get there.
We
We'll
will
get there.
100%. We will get there.
But-
100%.
But why do we have to try and force people to do something that they don't want to do and set potentially unrealistic deadlines?
the same reason your septic has got to be 100 feet away from my well.
Right.
Because otherwise, then we're going to have a problem, right? So the same thing here. Like, at some point, at the end of the day, as much as it was maybe not thought of before, our great-great-great-grandchildren are going to be handed something that they can't manage anymore, right? And I'm not saying that me, by picking up that can or moving that plastic to the recycle, is going to make the difference, right? But and I applaud Julie for this, because you do, right? This is your job and you live it. But at the end of the day, I just think whether it's, I think Ryan's right. You can't just say tomorrow it's happening, right? Because you need the infrastructure, right? Like,
Right.
People may get used to a 45-minute stop when they're, electricity, and it's changing. Our technology is
Right.
changing, right? The capability of the
be a 40
vehicle.
minute.
The
But
technology
When you
has to
first
be
bought an
there.
electric car, how long did it take you to charge?
Overnight, and it still wouldn't. By the time 10
okay.
years is here,
Yeah.
it won't be 45. It won't be 45
Okay.
minutes. And we have to do something because fossil fuels are not unlimited.
I understand that fossil fuels aren't unlimited, but we are going to run out of fossil fuels before we come up with an alternative energy.
No.
That's
that
not
is-
true.
We have the technology now. Nobody wants nuclear. Nobody.
That's not true either.
That's not true either. Actually, there's several places that are doing correct me, the micro nuclear.
Right.
We used to have
Yes.
like 3 Mile Island where you did a whole.
Right.
One plant would do. What is it down in Buchanan there on the Hudson River?
Yeah,
You'd-
Indian Point.
Indian Point.
And the whole Hudson Valley you would power. They're getting away from that. They're doing small. They're trying to build smaller ones,
Right.
like a solar field, but they do your neighborhood or whatever.
But there is
Scale it down.
a downfall to them as well.
Because
There
let's
is
be
a
honest.
waste. There's a byproduct
Well,
of
wait
that.
a second. The Navy has been running nuclear carriers
Yes.
which is a small city, and they run them off a nuclear power plant.
Yes.
Why can't we use that power to do the city of Kingston?
You can,
If
but
a
you have to
nuclear
have a
ship where you're
place.
by yourself out in the middle of the ocean and it's safe,
Yes.
kinda. why can't, the government is involved, so it's not always perfectly safe. The military, so you gotta take that for what it is. But why can't they do that in Kingston?
They can. They absolutely can. But you have to have the money, one, to do it, two, the police to do it, and three,
You get slow, I know.
three, the infrastructure to support it. You have to have all of these things aligned, and it's a lot of money to get to that point.
Breathe,
And
Julie,
you
breathe.
have to have the willingness of the people. And so to get to the bottom line, why isn't it happening? Because there are people who don't want to.
But some of it is,
Or can't.
90%.
Some people can't. Some people don't have the means. If
I'm going
Jeff
to tell
wants,
you, most people don't have a clue.
if Jeff wants to continue camping, Jeff is not going to get an EV truck to tow his camper.
I might in a year, 2 years.
And
You
you need
might.
a camper.
You might.
Because it will be the only
But it
choice.
doesn't exist.
Have you met my wife?
It's not going to be the only choice. They're going to stop selling cars in New York, not nationwide. The amount of
We're not getting a
sales
smaller
tax,
camper. Trust me.
the amount of sales tax that New York State is going to lose by not selling internal combustion engines, it's going to bankrupt the state.
No, they're just
That's
going to raise
very
the tax
dramatic.
somewhere else.
It is not dramatic. Look at the number of pickup trucks and SUVs, light duty trucks, heavy duty trucks. We deal with this all the time, and we've had this argument more than once, and we're still going through the process of procuring larger vehicles that are borderline being able to do the job that we need them to do. Until the technology and the battery power can catch up to what we currently have, it is going to be very difficult to transition. Very difficult. Because it has to be that apples to apples comparison, or something else has to give. Something has to change.
So go ahead, Julie. Nope.
I'm okay for good.
So part of it is, I don't think it's going to be very difficult to get away from the dump trucks, the loaders, the airplanes, stuff like that. But how many vehicles do we, and I'm guilty of it, I'll admit, right? I'm owning it, that are single driver, single occupant vehicles that are going to locations. And I know there's, mass transportation of, buses and so on, and encouragement to try to move it. But at the end of the day, I don't know what the percentage of the electricity that's on those poles out front is created by fossil fuel or by solar, or I don't know. What's the...
Central Hudson told us. Oh, go ahead.
Their Central Hudson, who is our main energy provider, has a mix in their portfolio.
Okay.
It changes all the time.
Okay.
So I can't say right now that it's 50% whatever.
Okay.
It is, a lot of it is hydro in New York State.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. All right. That's
and-
good. That's
and-
renewable energy, right?
Yes.
It's considered... Okay.
Yes.
And it's growing, and the renewable mix is growing all the time.
Yes.
For me, solar, wind, hydro, geo. Is that one?
Those are options, yes.
But those are all considered.
Yes.
Am I missing any?
So
And
hydro
nuclear,
is
but
more
nuclear,
than solar
and
right
nuclear.
now?
Okay.
Hydro because of Niagara Falls.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And 55 or more other small hydro
And I was going to say, there's
facilities
something
around
in the East River, is it?
There's a lot of them all
There's
over.
there's turbos in the water.
But people
turbines.
need to be
Cool.
willing to
Turbines in the
switch to
water.
that if people aren't willing to have wind turbines in their area.
Right.
And they're not willing to put
So,
Right.
turbines in their water bodies
What is the
and I'm with
downfall? Why would people be against that?
noise, right?
for wind.
Lots of things.
People are against the way that it looks.
Well, there's other things too. I mean, there's
Which they
still,
go through with
bad.
solar as well. They
Yeah,
went
oh,
through.
I know.
Remember
I
the
know.
solar
I know
field?
people
that-
who
but
don't like
there's
to
other,
see it.
There's other things too.
when we
right?
went to Waltz and we saw the second solar field that Cypress Creek had done simultaneously with this one, they had to do from the mountains and the ridge through the hiking trails and overlook and all that. They had to take photographs from those points to be sure that it wasn't going to obstruct the views. That was one of the arguments that they had made. When they cleared that 25 acres of forest land to put in the solar field, they had to be sure that it couldn't be seen from any of these key places.
Yeah, we had that here. We had some neighbors complaining they don't want to look out their bathroom window and see
And
a solar
I'm
panel.
I'm a simple guy, right? I bet you if you change the conversation from environmentally, stewards and all this other stuff, and just say it's better for you, right? Wind, it's better. It's easier. We don't have to do this. It's cheaper. You get more people to buy into it. Unfortunately, the way we are, the way we get stuck in our ways, in our thoughts and our prayer, well, why am I going to worry about this when China's not doing it? Whatever. You make it say, hey, look, man, we're going to give you access to cheaper power that's clean, and you like the boat, right? Oh, okay, it's going to keep the water cleaner.
But I think your key word there was cheaper. because that is what motivates most people.
Right.
I honestly think
I agree with you.
it's the bottom
But
line,
you have to readjust the
the narrative.
narrative. Thank you.
But is it cheaper? So to take an all-electric vehicle, whatever it is, say I'm going to use a Chevy Blazer, gasoline-powered Chevy Blazer, to go from here 100 miles, one speed, 55 miles an hour, and compute the gas usage and the cost per gallon, what's it cost to make that trip, and do the same thing in an all-electric
But you
Chevy
can't.
Blazer.
You can't.
Yeah, it's too much.
You
It's more than
can't
that.
because now Margaret doesn't have an oil change.
Oh yeah, I know.
have-
I'm just talking about.
Margaret doesn't have, you know what I mean?
Right.
So you could, I shouldn't say you can't. You absolutely can. But it's a big brain has
Correct,
to do
right.
it because
There's no engine, there's motors.
there's so much
You
different.
have windshield washer fluid, radiator fluid, and brake fluid. And that's it. That's all the fluids
Is
in
that what you're driving right now?
Yes.
Is that what
Yeah.
I love
Windshield
that.
washer fluid, radiator fluid for the fan, and brake fluid are the three fluid liquids in there. What I'm saying to you is, from here 100 miles, what's it cost in a gasoline powered, identical vehicles per se, and then electric, because I guess that's the cost per kilowatt, right? So at that point, cost per kilowatt, how many kilowatts, what's that cost? And, although I do about the same in a gasoline vehicle, fill up at the pump once, so they're both doing about 240, 250 miles per fill up. My interest is, what's the fill up on the gas cost? That's easy to compute, like 22 gallons at $3 a gallon. But I don't have a cost of the electric. I guess it would be per kilowatt, right?
Per kilowatt, right.
And then you'd have to look and see, okay, how many kilowatts does it take to do that same distance?
Do you know, Julie?
It's not apples to apples. There's
Right.
way too many factors to be thinking
Right.
about. Like, how is the electricity produced? Where is the gas coming
and the
from?
time,
What kind
right?
of car? Like,
Margaret
how old is
charges-
the vehicle?
Margaret charges at a certain time of
Right.
night because it's cheaper.
Right.
Right. Okay.
She doesn't go to the, when she goes to Rhinebeck or wherever, she doesn't charge there because that's more expensive, right? So,
But
it's tough to say.
if you calculate it over I understand your point for the trip, right? But if you calculate it over the life of the vehicle, say the life of the vehicle is 10 years, what it would cost you to drive that vehicle with a gas motor versus an electric motor over the course of that 10 years. Because then you can factor in your services, wear parts, whatever it may be.
Okay.
Because from even the same vehicle, your wear parts are going to be different. Your replacement parts are going to be different. You could have major malfunctions in 10 years. You could have no malfunctions in 10 years.
I have a question. So, Julie, you probably know this. Is the life of a new car gas car, as long as the life of a new electric car?
I have no idea.
And there again, that's tough to say because you take care of your vehicles, right? You check your oil, you check your thing, you drive. You get some. I know some people that replace brake pads every 20,000 miles.
Right.
Right. They replace tires every 15,000 miles, 20,000 miles. So it's really tough to say. I got to tell you, if I wasn't retiring in like a very short time, and the Nobles and we've had our, I was not an EV guy, right? When we first started, correct?
Right.
Not. Margaret's got one. I would buy one to go back and forth to work. And I drive 95 miles round trip a day. I would absolutely today, if I was going to work for say another 5 years, God forbid, I would go EV. 100%.
My next car will definitely be electric.
100%.
There's no doubt
I would
about
go
that.
EV.
My
if I
concern
did.
is that I do have to go to Buffalo every now and then. I have a child that lives there.
You have to plan to charge in your trip. You have to
Right.
build in that time.
I'm happy to hear it only takes 45 minutes because I was thinking hours.
But again, technology's changing. Margaret's got a VW. Supposedly next month, they're going to have a Tesla adapter for all Volkswagens.
Oh, okay.
So
Which means what?
Which means her charge time from 20% to 80% is down to under 20 minutes.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
Plus
Yeah.
or minus. Don't quote me.
And she can put that in her vehicle.
And she can put the charger adapter in her vehicle. She pulls into a Tesla station, plugs in.
The technology is
Cup of coffee.
changing extremely
Right,
rapidly.
right.
Bathroom, cup of coffee. 20 minutes later, she's another.
Yeah, I know with the
300 miles,
Chevys-
200 some odd miles.
With the Chevys, they have different tiers. Even just within they have the level 1 charger that comes with the vehicle, a level 2 charger that does like 30 amps, and then another charger that's a level 2 plus that goes up to 80 amps. So it takes about 5 hours to go from 30% to 80%, 82%, somewhere's in there. They recommend not a high level charge to go to 100 unless you're making a long trip. But then they're talking about, and I don't know if we have them yet in this area, but they're talking about high amperage DC chargers. And this vehicle is capable of charging on one of those chargers in 19 minutes, full charge.
The
for
one in
20%.
Washington Avenue, is that not a high?
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
one right now, and I'm
Okay.
putting one
America.
at the visitor center
Okay,
downtown.
that's
And all
it. That's it.
Teslas. All Tesla chargers are DC high speed.
Yeah.
So once you get the converter,
Right.
I think Volkswagen's going soon, BMW's getting it. A lot of different cars are getting this adapter. And again, 20 minutes later, you
Yeah,
can be...
I absolutely see. So I see the validity in doing it. My concern isn't the technology, because I agree. I think the technology in 2 years will exponential, right? The growth, the capability, the batteries, the charging systems, all of that. I mean, just amazing, right? The tech. So, but I think my concern is, where does the energy to charge the car come from? And if you're saying that it's about 50% right now with the portfolio,
I don't know
Oh,
what it is
okay.
right now. It varies
About, yeah, but
literally daily. I mean,
Okay.
they're modifying their portfolio based on commodities. There's
Okay.
commodities trading all the time.
because you would think that that there's got to be a way to assess locations to determine this is a good place for solar.
There is.
Okay.
So you can go right now. I can tell you 5 different places where you can go and see the grid capacity
Okay.
of the major transmission lines and the distribution lines, and that's how it is determined when you're putting in or proposing a solar system. When a developer is proposing one, they have to see what the grid capacity is and whether there's room on the grid. And all of this is to say that there also is onus on the energy utilities like Central Hudson to develop a larger grid system to be able to accept and have capacity for more energy that's being produced and distributed locally.
Right, which they're doing now. I mean, they're still in the process of doing this project here that came right through Hurley to replace the transmission lines.
So I saw the big,
all the way up. They're up past me now.
I would love to know how many vehicles or all EV vehicles are purchased that are not charged at home or charged with the little charger that they give you. It takes 10 hours, 12 hours
Well,
to
like,
charge.
I think Margaret's has she's got a 50 amp charger.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, it's a 50 amp charger. It's a couple hours. So
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
like you
I
said,
mean, we
she does
track
it
every
overnight.
single vehicle that charges in the city of Kingston. I can tell you what vehicle charged where, for how long, what time they plugged in, what time.
And that's that charge point.
That's the
Okay.
system, yeah.
That's the one.
They're all networked. All the systems are networked. So, it's the thing is, if you are living in Kingston, you're probably not charging at work because Kingston's only 7 miles around.
Okay. Right.
It's for folks who are moving through the area or for tourists.
Right.
And in that case, if you're coming to Kingston or passing through, you want something fast to be able to charge.
Right.
But then it gets to places like accommodating folks who live in apartments that can't have a charger at home. And that's why community chargers are important, so that if you live in a high rise or if you live in a multifamily and you don't have the ability to plug into if you don't have a charger at home, or if whatever the case is, that's why we also need to be able to accommodate. Ultimately, every parking lot, what's currently known as a gas station, every place where people would normally go and park has to have EV charging stations in it.
Because that's the other piece of this that we talked about, is for consideration if she does need a vehicle that can go on trips where she's going to have to make 1 or 2 stops, is what happens if you get there, you say, because I know they have the capability to map it out. Oh, there's a charging station up ahead. You should probably consider it. Okay, whatever it tells you. You pull in there, and now all the spots people just pulled in before you, and now they're there for 20 minutes.
Yes.
Now your trip is now 40 minutes. Even if it's 20 minutes, what if it's more than that?
Right.
So
And that's
those are all the considerations. I mean, you might have to wait for the gas pump at some point if it's a gasoline
it's
vehicle.
5 minutes.
But it's 5-10 minutes, maybe 10 at the most if the person's going
Yeah.
slow, But
I just took my son on a college tour in Buffalo, and I specifically was looking for the chargers in the parking lots, and they only had on this one entire campus the one place, and there was cars lined up.
Right.
But if you even look at how many chargers there were 5 years ago compared to
Right,
now,
right,
it's
right.
exponential.
Yeah,
In
right.
5
Yeah.
years, it will be exponential.
Right. And that's the thing too. Like, even us, like here, if we were to get an electric car, we would install a charger, a high, 100 amp charger here for that. So the charging time is substantially reduced. And like I said, it's an exponential technology gain too.
Right.
So right now, the battery capacity or the battery flow is limited. Well, it may not be in a year from now, right? And when Volkswagen comes out or Honda comes out or, Chevy comes out with a newer system, these things are going to be just faster all around. The charger connector for this EV is, a single opening, and then there's a larger piece, another opening to get to the DC part that's monstrous, so they're just like a fire hose, just pumping it in there, but you got to be able to receive it. So, like I said, the use of this vehicle's kind of got me thinking in that direction, and although we always looked at solar as an opportunity to reduce our regular cost, it just didn't make financial sense at the time, and then I started thinking, well, if the government really wanted to push this, they would have some sort of a program to be able to say, okay, we'll pay for the panels, or exactly what I was saying before. And I just don't think we're there yet, and I know there's a lot of places moving in that direction, but that mandate or whatever it is, that legislation that's pushing is, no gasoline engines, passenger, right? Not trucks. Trucks are exempt.
I don't think anything's exempt.
Oh, really?
There might be a different year for when heavy duty goes into effect.
Okay.
I think it's passenger vehicles one specific year, and then
that might be
later.
Okay, so at that point, like in 2036, when we go to Chevy, Romeo Chevy, whatever down here, or Ford or whatever it is, all they can sell us is used gas or new vehicles, right? That are EV, right? I imagine, and hybrids. Those are pretty much going by the wayside now, right? The gas-electric combination, they're not doing that anymore. Now that EVs have the capability.
Well, they still are. I mean,
right. But EVs are actually
right.
going that same distance. The advantage of the hybrid is, if you run out of battery, you can go on the gas. Well, now electric
systems
are going, and we have vehicles down there that are hybrid in nature, and you still have a gasoline engine you got to maintain, and all it's doing is it's a
supplement.
This full EV Blazer is definitely blows the other ones out of the water, no doubt about it. But I guess we'll just see. Like I said, I know there's a level of controversy because I'm not giving up my gas, I'm not giving up my diesel, and there's places for that heavy equipment right now. I know I think you told me they came out, Volvo or Caterpillar came out with an all EV excavator.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at an all electric excavator right now,
and
because
so,
we're getting ready to replace one of our excavators in the next 2 or 3 years. Sani makes an all electric excavator.
So that makes sense in an environment like the city, a municipal environment where there is an infrastructure and a grid. Hands down makes sense.
Well, right now they're most widely used in mining operation. Because
so how do they get?
They self-charge. The top of the machine has panels that maintains the level in the
That's
batteries.
awesome.
See, that's smart.
Yeah, it's really cool technology. But when they do need to charge, if it's not enough of a supplement, that they use diesel generators.
Right. That's what
that they have to
when they
plug
talk
into.
about a construction site where they're setting up locations, they may not have electricity there yet.
Right,
They're
exactly.
running it. So, but in a municipal environment, it makes sense.
Right.
Any place in the city, and especially if it's a department or an organization that runs 8-hour days. You start running 24-hour days. These vehicles are running 24 hours. It's almost impossible. There's got to be a point where it can't charge and run at the same time, right? But for us, we looked at it and we would figure we would get about 3 days of full usage and then one shift that would have to charge. We don't have that concern with the gas, although we have maintenance concerns with it. So it's just a matter of maybe looking at it operationally and changing how we got to do things that way. But this thing's great. I'm in love with it. I told you as soon. I'm like, man,
Again,
I got to tell you, it's just
Yeah,
nice.
I really
Again,
like it.
I would give.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't get rid of the truck, but the other two cars, one is electric. I would go with my car EV in a heartbit.
Yeah.
If it made sense for me, to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my next car, I really like what he's driving right now. I want that, I think.
Well, there's a lot out there. Go look at all of them.
Yeah, no, the Chevy. I mean, I'm driving the Chevy, but I know they make a bunch of different EVs out there, and the Honda makes a beautiful. I looked at that one. There's like a bunch. I think we looked at
Honda. Oh my god.
Yeah, no, it's just great. Like I said, I knew there was a lot of discussion on it because even at work, there's guys that love the hybrid EV stuff, and then there's guys like, nope, I'm taking the
But
gas.
again, if you put somebody, just like tons of stuff, if you give somebody a EV car and don't tell them it's an EV car,
Right.
right, and you give them somebody a gas car and you tell, go drive it, man,
Yeah.
take it for a ride, they're gonna like the EV because performance, handling, hands down, a cheap EV is going to handle as good or better than a sports car.
Yeah, I told Turner the other day. I said,
And you tell people that, and they'll switch because they want to, not because it's what somebody says is the right thing or whatever. Because
yeah, he saw me pull in with it, and he was like, "Oh, that's a nice looking car." I go, "It is." I said, he goes, "Ain't no Hellcat." I go, "This thing is designed to catch Hellcats."
Yeah.
I said, "Let me tell you something."
and a Hellcat is $100,000.
Yeah.
Where an EV, if $40,000, is going to have the performance.
It's amazing, the torque and the motors he said. It's absolutely amazing. So, I know we got to probably hit the hour at this point, right?
Yeah.
That was a long one.
It was, but I learned a lot.
Send your comments.
All right. Well, we hope you like and subscribe. And if you have any questions about EV cars, you can reach out to Julie.
See you soon.